go, of course. We should be getting close. Oh, I can't wait to see the look on her
The only
face.
thing that's
No,
balancing me properly
no,
is having my hands directly in front of me.
Hold on, because I might
Oh.
this next part completely through. Ah! Well, I'm going the wrong way.
Oh!
Find you.
Quite like that bit. That is vom-inducing, but quite like it.
What are you doing? What do you... Get down here. Get down here. Now, are you settled? Well, let's get into it.
Alright, down here.
Right. Well,
Oh.
I'm going to take this rail in the back way. See you at the bomb. Good luck.
Ah, no! Yeah, fuck! I thought I was right off that.
Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Can We VR It? The show where we end up trying out games that are from PC going into VR and see if they're worth actually doing. My name is Kyle, also known as Smash52 on Twitch, which you can find me here, streaming all of these little experiments that I'm doing on my Twitch channel live and see exactly what I find good, what I find bad, and all the hiccups that come along the way.
Oh! Boing! Woo! Yeah! Check out those acrobatics.
In this video, we're going to be porting the PC game that is so critically acclaimed, Portal 2. So, if you're new to this channel, you might be asking, why exactly am I doing this? Well, I would ask you the question, is that rhetorical? I mean, you've played VR before, right? Portal 2 is a game I absolutely adore, from the storylines to the puzzles to just the cheeky little quirks about it that make it such an entertaining game.
Oh! Ah!
Hello? Can you see the portal gun? Also, are you alive? That's important. Should have asked that first.
Especially the physics drew me to it, because in VR we all know that, well, being launched from one side of the map to another can be a hell of a lot of fun. Well, for people who get motion sickness very easily, you might be in for a rough ride. And the whole point of this channel is to let people in the VR curious community be able to actually see if it's worth doing in the first place, and also an insight to how I'm doing it.
Alright. Are you ready for this, Kyle? 3, 2, 1. Hip. Oh, f***. Where am I? Where? Oh. I think I peed a little.
So how are we going to rate this? So the first thing we're going to look at is immersiveness. Does that keep you in that bubble of meta goodness, or does it render the game completely unusable and unplayable due to glitching and issues from the mods? Second thing we're going to look at is the ease of setup, which means that is it going to be as easy as a plug and play, or are you going to have to hack that system in order to force it into the headset so you can just get it to VR face thing? Sorry, I got a bit emotional there. Third thing we're going to look at, the ease of play, because it's not just getting it into the headset. You gotta be able to use those controls. And if you've seen the last video, you know I prefer to use the Oculus controls over using any keyboard and mouse, and well, I want to be standing doing it, and it's a bit more animated when you, even if it's just the controls in front of you that you can see waving about. The next thing we're looking at, story. Well, I know this isn't exactly to do with the ability to port it into VR or not, but I'm not going to recommend a game that's just a pile of poop. And the last thing we're going to look at is the graphics. And I don't mean whether you can play this at 4K at 120 frames a second. I'm talking about what things that you end up hacking using these mods, causing glitches within the game itself, sometimes rendering the game unplayable, or you will end up having your immersion completely broken from it.
So this might be a bit of a dangerous one, but oh! Did that break? It's cool.
So this brings us on to how. We're going to be using a program called Vorpx. If you've seen the last video on Outlast, it's basically going to be following the same thing. You end up going to the website, you click a link, you download the program, you install the program, you open the program, you hook it onto the actual game that you're looking to play, and then after that, you launch the VR title, or well, PC title in this case, and you're good. Sort of. Once you have set it up and you have everything working within the headset, you need to make sure that your entire field of view, the screen itself, and just make sure that everything sits right before you get into the game. One of the things that I did end up finding was this took a lot more tweaking than Outlast. So in order for you not to get motion sickness, you need to spend a lot of time with this in the earlier levels, because later, once those portals open up and you're able to launch yourself through something at a velocity that I can only describe as insane, well, you're gonna have a really rough time of it.
Oh, yes! Ooh. Going down a portal there and coming out this way with my feet up in the air. Not good. Not good. But I passed it.
So how does it play? How easy is it to set up the controls and get you into the right motion settings that actually make you feel comfortable in VR? Well, let's just say there's a lot to talk about. Get yourself a drink, sit down, and let's settle in. I'll try to be as concise as possible with this and get through this video and make it, hopefully, short enough that you don't lose interest halfway through.
Get this lined up too. And a 1. And a 2. And a potato! Whoo! Whoo! Yes! Potato counting always wins.
So my first impressions, well, a lot needed to be changed in order for this to calibrate correctly, so you weren't feeling like everything was just off kilter or off skew. I had to change the height on a few things just so I didn't feel too close to the ground. One of the main contributing factors to people getting motion sickness, where they feel that they're not at the same height as they normally are and their distance to the ground is slightly off. Another thing that ended up causing issues was there was a slight distortion around the peripherals of your view. So whilst everything in the center felt like it was in focus, everything else felt like it was stretching around like a massive curved screen. And I know this was more to do with the geometry 3D function within Vorpx, which we will talk about on a later video when we're looking at an in-depth guide. However, this was one thing that whenever I came out of VR, it really took a while to get back into the real world so I could actually walk around and do things. It was severely sick-inducing.
Yeah, there's only a certain amount of time that you can play that in VR. Oh, I can't. Oh, that's affected my entire eyesight. Woof.
The movement. Well, let's just say that whenever you're going around, you're using the joysticks. Nothing too strange. The left one for moving forward, back, left, right. The right one for recentering your center of vision. And of course, your headset is the mouse in this case. So where you look, that is where you're going to go. One of the things that you will need to know is that due to the way that this is modded, your XY axis is also tied to where you're looking. So if you're pressing forward as you would the W key on a keyboard or up on an analog stick, and then you turn your head, you will just turn that way.
I look where I want to go, I go.
So it can be handy once you get the hang of it for steering, but do you see whenever you're going through portals that's in front of you and you come out at 45 degrees at a ridiculous speed, that will be completely vomit inducing. It's one of the closest games I've ever played that has actually gotten me to feeling slightly motion sick. And I've played a lot of VR games. The aiming is pretty straightforward, if not sometimes difficult. That's one of the advantages and disadvantages to having your face being the actual cursor. Where you face across, it will fire. However, whenever you change some of the settings to make it a bit more comfortable, it can make your player center or model center go off to the right and left. So whenever you're attempting to go through a portal, you may need to either adjust the way you do it or set everything back so you can actually aim at things properly.
It's so difficult to control. It's not my fault. That didn't work.
Another thing to talk about, adjusting the FOV does break your positioning. What I mean by positioning is where the character model actually sits in the view that you're looking at, so it's never actually dead on center. Increasing the field of view seemed to make you drift off to the right or left depending on which preferred eye you selected in the program. So that was one of the things that I needed to actually revert back to 0, and it made everything very, very, very big, but it was not immersion breaking. Using lasers, well, this is one of the positives. Lasers were actually really fun to use. As soon as you ended up getting one of the boxes in front of the lasers, you literally just looked to where you wanted it to go and you felt like Superman or Cyclops. One of the things you need to be wary of this is that you can't move around too much with Vorpx, otherwise it will tell you to recenter.
Oh, what is that?
Don't walk into the light.
Whoa. Okay, Vorpx, I'll do that.
So let's look at the game itself. You play the role of Shell, someone who's woken up from status by an AI known as Wheatley, who's looking to escape from the facility because he fears that the testing facility's meltdown will be blamed on him by upper management. Let's just say he's a bit of a scaredy cat.
Okay, I'm going to lay my cards on the table. I don't want to do it. I don't want to go in there. Don't go in there. She's off. She's off. Don't panic over. She's off. All fine. On we go.
But of course, we end up loving the character because it is voiced by the British comedy actor, writer, and producer Stephen Merchant. So very much early in the game, you end up finding out what type of character this Wheatley is, and then you also very, very quickly run into Gladys, the main villain from the last Portal game, or the first Portal game, the Portal 1. And then you're trapped trying to solve puzzles throughout a series of tests that are being done by Gladys, and of course she antagonizes you the entire time because you sort of killed her in the first one.
You are a horrible person. That's what it says. A horrible person.
But you barely know
weren't
me.
Even testing for that.
That's just judgmental.
I should have put a spoiler alert in there. I should also put a spoiler alert there because obviously he is alive again. The tone of the game is completely sarcastic and over the top. The characters themselves come across as maniacal, sociopathical characters, just like you would end up finding in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which actually makes it a better game. It just adds something to the side rather than it just being a game completely based on puzzles. And as for the puzzles, personally, I find the lab ones a lot easier to do. The ones that ended up going into the Aperture testing facility, I tended to find that they were just a bit confusing.
Yeah, all of the goop up these walls, then these walls, then these walls, then these walls, then these walls. Oh, for God's sake, was it this easy the entire time? Totally overthinking. Oh, that was... God damn it.
But this is still a game I would recommend for anyone who wants a good physics-based puzzle brain teaser. This is so good and so much fun.
Oh! Whoa! 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 I broke the game! I think I broke the game! Oh!
Now we're getting into the good stuff. So how'd the graphics hold up within Portal 2? Well, assets in the foreground, they tended to actually have certain issues with them. For example, you lift Wheatley at the very start of the game and you end up carrying him around, and as you reach different assets such as railings or the wall, it would pull him very, very close, and it was very, very close to breaking the immersion of it if it wasn't for it being so funny. This was one of the things of where the actual game itself and the story pulled you back into it enough so that didn't spoil it. The second thing I have to say is that by adjusting your field of view or adjusting the 3D stereoscopic image, it can sometimes cause light bleeding once again around that peripheral section of your vision. Other things that can also break it are also putting your head through assets of where you wouldn't normally be able to do within the game, so not a massive issue, but you don't want to go to the light. One of the other things that I noticed was that whenever the FOV was widened, so so you could end up getting more of that screen all up in your face. It caused some issues with rendering in assets to the peripheral of your view. For example, railings would just randomly disappear if you were trying to walk over to something. There was one issue that I kept getting, and it maybe only happened a handful of times, but randomly within the game, it may have been because I was swapping back between my Twitch chat and going into the program again. Sometimes it messes with what's hooking onto the video. However, it had this sort of weird zoom thing that just I couldn't get to work after it happened. I just had to shut down the game, restart, and then everything was absolutely fine and dandy. There was an issue that I noticed in part of the games where the actual reflective surfaces of certain pools of water would end up warping the mirrored image from it. So that, to a certain extent, would break your overall level of immersion, but nothing too ridiculous. And last but not least, the HUD. During the first gameplay of it, I ended up actually having the yellow and blue crosshair that was supposed to be throughout the entire game. The main thing that I had noticed was that whenever I changed all of the settings on the second load of it, so I didn't get as much motion sickness coming out of it, it had disappeared. Of course, this isn't a make or break scenario for this type of game. Having to shoot at an area and try and get something without having the crosshair there wasn't really the worst thing in the world. You just shot a few more times and you miss a few times. Nothing too embarrassing.
Right, so let's get back here. See where this leaves me. Oh! All right, I'm in. But this is the way up. Is this the way up? Yeah, this is the way up. Cool. Oh, fuck.
And last but not least, to do with the graphics, the one main thing that I did notice was that your portal gun arm just ended up floating in front of you as if it was some form of poltergeist that was carrying it for you. Turning around and looking at different things changed perspective, it changed view. Once again, this can be resolved a lot more easily within the setup, but it may end up causing more motion sickness whenever you're trying to play the game. So depending on your level of experience to VR and how strong your VR legs are, I would recommend trying to keep as wide a view as possible. But with that being said, this is not for the faint-hearted. So would I recommend anyone to port this game in VR? Well, for people like myself who are a bit more of adrenaline junkies who have already gotten our VR legs and want to test and see how far we can push them, I would definitely do it. For people who are more prone to motion sickness within VR, stay away. This is not a game for you. But on the other hand, exposure therapy? Don't. I don't want to be blamed for the numerous TikToks of people trying Portal 2 for the first time in VR and throwing up in front of their families. Or do I? The portals in this game and the physics make it absolutely mind-boggling. There were so many times that I ended up playing that I just didn't know where I was. I didn't know which way it was up, which way it was down, and once you started portal hopping between two portals on the same plane, it ended up being a barrel of fun. Just having that thing of where you're not really in control of what you're doing and you're just being launched mindlessly across something and dropping down. There were so many times that I had a massive drop and actually braced myself before I landed on the ground. So for this game, I would, yes, definitely recommend it. So that is it from me. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like and subscribe. If you want to follow me on Twitch and see me doing all of this stuff live, you can find me just here. If you want to see more content coming through, or even the playthrough that will be coming up next for Portal 2, follow me on this channel. If you want to see me doing the next project, that one's going to be exciting. Then just come onto my Twitch and see me try these mods out, and it's where I get all of the footage for these videos. You know, you might as well come by, hang out, and all the links are in the description below. So yeah, until next time guys, have a good one.
Oh, up there. Ah! Where am I? Hey. Why do I feel like I need to brace for jumps? This isn't something that should be happening.